Hi guys, well this is my presentation then for Com 550 assignment 2. So the premise then was to take a 2D scene or model and recreate that in 3D. After a bit of deliberation I chose Echo the dolphin. So I'm just going to run through a series of slides now just to show you my workflow, and then there's a short cinematic at the end which displays the model and the scene. Okay, so the first thing that I was conscious that I was going to have to do was to recreate some kind of water environment, underwater environment, and water caustics I quickly found was going to be a major part of that. There's a couple of ways that I could have gone about it, but I ended up doing it as a deferred decal rather than a light function. So that's the blueprint, if you like, of how the water caustics work. It's just a couple of textures and a normal that are panned in different directions to try and create the kind of effect of light refracting through the surface of water and hitting the seabed. As you can see there, you can see the light refracting and hitting the seabed, so that's an example of water caustics. Doesn't work too well in a still photo, but you'll see in the cinematic how it functions. The other thing I wanted to do, and didn't come out too well, this one, was a bubbles particle emitter. But I made one of those with the help of a tutorial, and you can kind of see it in the environment in the cinematic if you look closely enough. And again, you can see it didn't come out as well as I'd hoped. You can just about make out bubbles going from the seabed up through the water. Okay, so onto the model then. I was happy I was going to be able to create an underwater environment, so I went straight in and had a look at the dolphin. Echo is a bottlenose dolphin, so this was the best kind of reference photo I could find. I went through 2 attempts at making the model in the end. I started off trying to make it from a cube. Wasn't very happy with the result. So I went back to the drawing board and just go with creating a series of NURBS circles to kind of box out the shape and create a lofted surface using those circles. And as you can see from the photos, the result was starting to look better already at the very beginning, so I stuck with that. The 2 areas that I then had to give a bit of attention to were shaping the tail, and I used the fin, the dorsal fin from the first model, and target welded that onto what I'd done with the NURB circles. Okay, ready to take in. So quite a bit of work then to sculpt some of the details and get the shape right. In particular, the face and the tail were the areas that I found probably trickiest to get looking right. And there we go, you can see the finished model there with just a little bit of smoothing necessary then. There's another couple of shots there. So that's kind of the finished model. Ready to create then the low poly version. Okay, so there's the low poly version. I think I got it down to about 8,000 poly count in the end, which I was kind of happy with as a main character. And there we go, there's the model then into Maya, ready to be UV'd. Did find a couple of areas that needed a bit of attention after dropping the subdivision count down. So the tail needed fixing, there was a few little errors with that, so a bit of tweaking here and there, I got that working. Okay, so UV, and then I made a series of cuts, as you can see, around sort of the tail, dorsal fins, pectoral fins, and around the head as well. Manually UV those and unfolded them. And then straight into Substance Painter then. So that's the high poly detail that's been baked onto the low poly model. I was a little bit unhappy with the face. In reflection, I wish I'd been brave enough to kind of rig the mouth to be able to open and things like that, but something I might go back to in the future. So yeah, then painting it in Substance Painter. This was quite tricky. I did use a series of different reference photos to get the colours right, and just the pattern really. I know it's only kind of 2-tone, but it's still quite tricky to get right. And there's another couple of shots then of the finished texture models, ready to go into rigging. Okay, so stage 1 of rigging then was adding the skeleton, and I had to go back and kind of speed run through a rigging course that I'd done as part of Nathan's module last year, because I couldn't quite remember exactly how to do it, but I got there eventually. And there we go, this is the kind of finished rigged model then, with some controllers added to certain points along the skeleton. in order to make animation a bit easier. Okay, and so had to do a little bit of work on weight painting, just because some of the joints, particularly for the pectoral fins, were kind of influencing the rest of the body, increasing it up when I was starting to play about with animations and moving things. Okay, so here's the animation stage then. I decided to go with two animations, one basic swim animation and a kind of jumping animation, because I thought it might look good with a dolphin coming out of the water for a jump. Okay, so dolphin done, rigged and animated, onto making the other assets now. So I thought I'd need to make a seabed really, so I kind of did that, basically a maya, and then sculpted some detail on it in ZBrush. A little bit fiddly, but it was just going to be one small piece that was going to be surrounded by some glass panels as a kind of containment unit, if you like. So this seabed, high poly to low poly bake again, keeping quite a bit of the detail on there, and basic texturing and painting then in Substance Painter, just some random rocks thrown in on the seabed. Okay, so onto the containment unit then. What I did was created a glass panel and a walkway that's going to be attached to the side of that as a kind of modular piece, so I could build up a tank using those. Okay, and there's the finished containment tank on the shoreline with the seabed in place, and it doesn't look too bad from a distance. Okay, some other assets I wanted to make then were a barrel, which I was going to place on the walkway just as a little item of interest, and also a beach for the sign. Sorry, a sign for the beach. So these assets I was going to use decals on to give them a bit of extra detail. See those in the final cinematic. And the other thing I wanted to do was create a dolphin research centre, if you like, just another area of interest on the beach really to use in the cinematic. So the photo in the top left then is a reference photo of an actual dolphin research centre. I think it's in Florida or somewhere like that. So I tried to get as close as possible to that. And that's the finished institute in place on the beach. Again, there's a couple of decals on there, one the logo on the roof and the other one the door. Okay, now on to creating the underwater environment itself. I opted to use a third-party asset pack with coral, seaweed and rocks and things like that, because it would literally added hundreds of hours onto the project, I think. As it was, it took me about 10 hours to hand place each piece and sort of rotate to scale. And the idea was to try and get it looking busy, but as natural as possible, and not looking like everything had been artificially placed there. Okay, look, quick reflection then before I show you the cinematic. I did really enjoy this project. Took a lot of hours, but it was well worth it. As I said, I'd love to have got the dolphin to be able to open his mouth, and I wish I'd actually done that from the start. And I'd love to have had the time to do absolutely every asset in the scene. I did have an idea of having a pod of Echo's friends come and rescue him from the containment unit, but I didn't manage to put that in place in the end, so Echo remains trapped, which I feel a little bit guilty about. So anyway, I'll let the cinematic play out. So there we have it. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.